All right, face me. Is that it? Yeah. All right. I'm going to be talking that way, so if you're behind me, you're not going to see the optimal view of things. So first, we're going to start with some shadow boxing warm-up, but there's a specific drill to the shadow boxing. So if you have not seen shadow boxing before, it's just, you have an imaginary partner, you're stepping around, doing jab, cross, hook, uppercut. The thing I'm going to change about a regular shadow boxing is imagine that your hands are completely numb. You cannot move your hands, and you're essentially thinking about, I guess it would be like the stump of your forearm, and that's what you're punching with. So just your hands are going to be completely limp, and think about you're just spearing the end of that forearm as the power of all your punches. All right, so find yourself some space and spend a couple minutes. I'll call out things to start adding. All right, so just start with a jab cross. It's not your whole arm that is limp, it is just the hands. Use those forearms to get your extensions. If you know it, add uppercuts. You're gonna have to extend that forearm more. If you know it, add some hooks. Add some front kicks, but your foot is numb. Not when you step down. You don't have to fall down. So use the rest of that leg to generate that power. Don't worry about striking surface. Just thrust that leg forward. Maybe add a side kick. Shadow boxing. All right, everybody come in. Shake it out a little. All right. So I'm going to be focusing on boxing strikes and front kicks today. And the thing I want to focus on is not what we usually teach as the foundation of boxing. So we usually teach the foundation of boxing is you're in your stance and everything is from the hips. It's going to move your torso. And then as long as you get your striking surface out while generate the movement from your lower body, everything's going to be great. It's usually not great until you've practiced that for many years. What usually happens is instead of these strikes coming out straight, we'll see either this or hooking instead of a straight punch. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to move sort of up the kinetic chain from your hands to your forearms, and from your feet to your lower leg. So again, most of the power is coming from here. We're not going to focus on that today. If you can generate that power, I'm going to assume that you're going to add that to your practice. If you're still working on it, we're going to sort of be cutting to either a cheat for the beginners or maybe a check yourself for the upper ranks. So here's what we're going to start with. Space yourself out a little, don't block the camera. Horse stance. So you get yourself into a punch. So one arm is out, One arm is at your hip. All right. So I want you guys not to focus on your striking surface. I want you to focus on your forearm. Notice how your forearm, the back of your forearm, is up and vertical, or the back of your forearm is facing the sky. It's not your thumb is up. It's not your pinky is up. It's not swimming through here. Forearm is vertical. So I want you to think about your forearms. And as you come and bring your other arm out, you're going to turn your forearm over about 2/3 of the way into this extension. So you're starting with your forearm sort of belly up, and then as you extend that punch about 2/3 of the way, you are turning that forearm over. Do that a couple times. Just watch your forearms. And keep your elbows brushing against your torso. I don't want them to start flaring out. Good. About 2/3 of the way into the extension. So here, my fist is at my hip, and I'm going to just kind of scrape my forearm across the side, and then about 2/3 of the way out, that forearm is turning over. Somewhere between 1/2 and 2/3. I like 2/3. And I want you to think, instead of touching something with your knuckles, I want you to think about stabbing through it using your forearm as a spear. So just kind of ignore your hands. You have your fist, set it and forget it. Think about stabbing through with your forearm. And the point at which you are stabbing through, the top of your forearm should be facing the ceiling. Emily, keep your forearm and elbow by your side as you are extending. Great. Okay. So we're going to bring this up into our boxing practice. I wanted to start with horse stance because everything is a lot more obvious when we are just moving one thing at a time. For boxing, we're going to stand in our boxing stance. So feet are hip width, hip depth, ball of your feet, upright posture. Your knuckles are facing the ceiling. Your elbows are facing the floor. Yes, there's a little bit of wiggle room in exactly the angle, but for now, try to keep your elbows fairly vertical facing the floor, just because I want to draw people's attention to when they are starting to flare out. So really try to keep those elbows down. So same idea as what we were just doing in horse stance. You're going to punch out, turning that forearm over, so that in the last third of that extension, the top of your forearm is facing the ceiling. Don't think about your hand. Don't worry about your striking surface lining up. Just your forearm. Keep those elbows pointing down until your arm is extended. So, Alex, you're turning over way too soon. So just think about you're starting tight and you're going to loosen this angle going straight forward, and then once it seems about 2/3 of the way, that forearm is going to turn over. So here we're starting like a pretty tight angle on the elbow. Push your hand forward, opening the angle of the elbow, and then about 2/3 of the way into extension, turn that forearm over. Keep those elbows pointing down. Good. All right. So remember, the thing I want you guys to be focusing on is to spear through your target with your forearm. And don't think too much about those hands. When you think about those hands, this starts happening. It'll be like this. I want you to think about spearing your forearm, and that's going to keep that wrist straight. Good. All right. Half of the people, grab a pair of those bats that are lined up on those walls. There's one more pair of bats. Someone grab those. All right. If you have a pair of bats, find yourself a partner. Rob, you will be in and I will be out. All right. Amanda, can you hold bats for me? You will have a different partner, but I'll use Amanda for demo. Yeah, don't block the camera. All right. So what Amanda's going to do is she's going to hold 2 bats vertically at about face height. And what you're going to do is you're going to punch through the first one into the second one, right? Jab, cross, jab, cross. And you're going to think about spearing that forearm through. I don't want to see, sorry, Amanda. Your partner also doesn't want to see that. So I'm trying to get you to, I'm trying to force a linear punch by having these 2 targets, and you'll have the feedback of one knocking into the other. So think about just spearing those form bats with your forearms. Questions? All right. Get with a partner. Do like 10 jab crosses and switch holders.
Elbows are starting super tucked in. It makes it really like
Try not to wind up, Alex, try not to wind up that cross. Start here with knuckles pointing at the ceiling, elbows pointing at the ground. So right now your elbows are pointing out. Point your elbows at the ground, knuckles at the ceiling, and just extend straight forward from there. Good. Yeah. Don't forget to switch holders. Can you guys rotate around so the camera can see? Yeah, so that the camera can see the targets. That's perfect. These heavy, heavy bats you have to punch. Good. So your initial stance, you want to be looking at the side of your hand. Your knuckles are straight up, elbows are straight down. And then you're going to extend just this fold of the elbow until you're right here, and then turn the forearm face up. Good. Again, you need to watch those elbows. You have a tendency to flare out. All right, 1 more minute, guys. Spear those bats. All right, everybody stop. Take your bats and put them back against the wall. Keep them in pairs. We're going to use them again later. All right. Questions on the concepts we've gone over so far? So again, knuckles are up, elbows are down. You are just loosening the angle of this elbow as you bring it forward until you're about 2/3 of the way through your extension, and then the forearm turns over and you are stabbing through your target with your forearm. Don't worry about your hand. What? Oh, yes, sir.
So one of the things I find I think they're holding elbows in too close. And the problem with this is if Mindy comes and presses on me here, the only way I can get power out of this, because it's a jam, is I have to flare out to start engaging my pec to push. And that means that when I punch from here, I have to flare out. Instead, I want to push my elbows forward, and I'm not like, just like everything a little bit farther forward. And now, go ahead and push on me. Like now I can actually use this extension to push into Mindy. So sometimes if you're feeling like I can't figure out why my elbows keep flaring out, it's because it's not about the punch, it's about that your guard position is in too tight, and so it's forcing you to come around. So a little bit of extension on the elbow.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we're going to start adding some hard blocks. I think now would be a great time for everybody to put on your forearm pads. We're going to start blocking these punches. And for an applied hard block, we're going to still have our hands in this punching position because that's what we were doing. So we're not starting from our formal, right? We're starting from like we're actually sort of in our boxing position. And so our applied hard block is going to start from this position. And we're going to have, in terms of the forearm turning over, it's again still going to be in about that last third of that extension. And of course, if you know how to move your body weight to power that, that's great. But if you are not effective at using your body weight to power this, this is still going to be sort of your check yourself situation where think about, just focus on the forearm. You want your arm to be, I'm going to say err on the side of being vertical. Usually it's going to be about 45 degrees. I see a lot of people getting flatter than 45 degrees, and if Amanda is punching me at my face and my block is here, I'm not blocking anything. So let's err on the side of being fairly vertical for these blocks. And so if Amanda is giving me a punch here, I'm going to try to block about here on her. So 1/3 of the way up the forearm to 1/2 of the way up the forearm with the equivalent spot of my forearm. And I'm just going to think about pushing my forearm into her forearm like I am hitting her forearm with my forearm. So she's trying to spear me, and I'm trying to hit her forearm with my forearm. Don't think about with your hand, with your forearm. And you're doing it fairly vertically, so just push that forearm forward, hitting with the pinky side of the forearm. And this is why we have pads on. So the drill is going to be, the puncher is going to give just a slow and easy jab cross. You're going to have your guard up. So I usually feel like if someone's going to jab at me, I'm not expecting it, I'm probably not going to have an effective block for that jab. But if my hand is up, it's just going to kind of jam her. And then the cross, now I know something is up. I'm probably have some reaction time for that second punch. So I'm going to have my hands up, jab, just a slow and easy jab cross. And block that cross with, again, jab cross. Vertical-ish forearm, pushing that forearm into her forearm. And then the puncher is still thinking about spearing with those forearms through. You're not going to go like this. You're going to think about spearing through with the forearms, turning over in that last third. Don't punch anyone in the face. Questions on the drill? So it's jab cross, hard blocks. Sending your forearm forward. I'm seeing a lot of what we call windshield wipering, where it's just coming across your body like this. As you turn into that block, punch that forearm away from you with your forearm. So fire will. So this, punch the forearm. But by punch, I mean hit it with your forearm. This, while he is trying to spear me through with his forearms. Thank you, Will. Back with your partner. We're now going to add one more piece to this. So Amanda gives me jab cross. I'm going to return a cross at her. So it's going to be attacker does jab cross. I do my block and then return a cross, stabbing her or spearing her with my forearm. So I'm going to block, hard hit with that forearm against that forearm, and then I get to work on my spearing with that cross. So jab, cross, cross. Jab, block, cross. Got that? All right, play with your new buddy. We're gonna keep building this drill up a little bit for the rest of the seminar. And so keep in mind that as we are doing these jabs and crosses and returning that cross, keep thinking about spearing with those forearms. I'm still seeing a little bit of people turning their wrists over too soon. And this is what I'm trying to avoid by introducing the concept of focusing on the forearms. So think about forearms are turning the back of the forearm to the sky. So you're spearing through the person. When you are doing that hard block, you are punching or like hard hitting that forearm away with your forearm. And there are some groups that were having problems because, remember Amanda, jab cross, this, their hard block didn't move the forearm. And so they're like, how can I counter punch, right? But if you hard block this, the arm's not there anymore. So a good rule, a good way to check if you're getting a good hard block is you have knocked their punch off the line that they were doing, and now that is clear for your punch. I'm using the block as a strike. I am hitting their arm with my arm. Good question. All right, we're gonna add kicks to this. So front kick. You're going to get your foot up and extend straight out in a linear motion. What often happens at pretty much all ranks is you don't chamber high enough. And then people are thinking about how to get that striking surface up to that midsection level, and they're going to start swinging it like so. So I want to apply this idea of skewering with the part of the limb up from that extremity. Now going on to legs. So we're going to start thinking about skewering through the person we're kicking with the lower leg. So if you have a tendency to go like this, you'll notice that you can't really skewer. That's flicking. It's just swiping up. So we're going to think about really getting the lower leg, pointing at the target, and skewering it straight through. Amanda, can you grab some bats? And then just stand right here and hold them horizontally like so. Horizontally out. Yeah, a little lower. Thank you. All right, so we have a very narrow target. Again, we're going to try to push one into the other. A little more space between them. Thank you. And I'm thinking about just skewering through both of these with using my lower leg as a spear through that. If you are swiping up, that's what's going to happen. So if you are doing that, you know that you are making a mistake, and get that lower leg in line that you can just spear it straight through. Of course, we all know that we are generating the force from pushing off this leg, then pushing off our support leg and driving our hips forward. But just because we know that doesn't mean that we always do that. And so you can check yourself by thinking about lining up that lower leg and spearing it through. Because if you're doing that, you're also generating those forces that I just mentioned. So you're going to get with a partner. One person is going to hold the two bats slightly apart from each other. Person kicking gets to pick the height. I don't care what height it is. If it's down low, that's fine. I just want to make sure that you're having a linear kick. And think about just skewering through those two bats. You're making a kebab on your leg. Questions? All right. Half of the people, grab a pair of bats. Find partners with the other half. Those are not mutually exclusive things, but that's a good question, especially I think from a Taekwondo perspective. The question is, how much are you committing your weight to the kick versus retracting? And my answer is that those are not mutually exclusive possibilities. So, my front kick. I've committed all my weight to the kick, and I have retracted. I have stepped forward, covered a lot of distance because I'm moving my hips forward into the opponent. This the speed at which you are falling and the speed at which you retract your kick have to cooperate. So if I'm only pushing myself forward a little bit, I have a lot more time to retract that kick and step down. If I'm really off balancing myself severely, I have less time to retract that kick and put it down. Does that answer your question? Other questions, comments? Great. So I hope that with these very narrow in height targets that you have to hit going horizontally, you have started to appreciate what style of kicking you tend to have. And so remember, as you're doing your front kicks, going through warm up or, the drill that we're going to do next, think about, are you skewering through the person with that lower leg, or are you chambering low and just flicking high, breaking your toes? Okay. Where's Amanda? Here. We're going to go back to our combo, and we're going to add a kick. So go ahead, start with jab cross here, and I return my cross. She is going to step back out of range and front kick me in the gut. Let's see if you've digested your lunch by now. If you're really not feeling like getting kicked in the gut, you can step back out of that kick or step to the side. But the person doing the kick, think about skewering your partner through the gut, or if you cannot kick quite that high, maybe through the hip. But I want to see, again, that nice linear kick and not something that goes right? So the combo again is jab, cross, again. Jab, cross, hard block, return that cross. She's going to step out and return a kick. Everything is skewering. So skewer those forearms on all those strikes. And then for that block, again, you are hitting that putt, you're hitting that cross off its trajectory away from you. And then skewering through the gut with that kick, making a human kebab. Jab, cross, block, cross, skewer. You came up a little bit on that one. Okay. Questions? Thank you, Amanda. Find yourself a buddy. All right, so that is all we have time for the lesson today. So I want to reiterate the main take-home points, which is that while all of our power for both strikes and kicks is coming from the ground, coming through our hips, that is hard to actually implement in yourself. And so the way you can sort of give yourself a mental checkpoint is think about those skewering options. So it is hard to skewer through somebody with your forearm without doing that with your legs. It is hard to skewer through somebody front kicking without driving your hips forward. So this is not an either or, this is sort of an intermediate checkpoint for those concepts. And I find that when I am teaching strikes, everyone from white belts through first dan tends to turn their hands over too soon, and yelling at them to just think about punching, focusing on their forearms tends to correct that pretty well, which is why I wanted to bring it up today. All right, so in our, everyone grab a drink of water and pad up. So our, I guess now 12 minutes of playtime. We're going to be doing, AB type sparring drills. So that could be 1-1s, 2-2s, 3-3s, light sparring, NN number of strikes, or like actual sparring, lowest common denominator. So if one person, regardless of the rank, is like, I want to go down in intensity, and the other person wants to spar, well, it's going to be the lowest common denominator wins. So if Kobe wants to spar and I want to do 2-2s, I'm going to do 2-2s, all right? The thing I want you to focus on are these linear strikes where you're skewering them with your forearms, Don't forget, uppercut is also another linear strike that you can think about skewering through with that forearm. And then for kicks, again, skewer through with that lower leg with your kicks, and also for side kicks, skewer through with that lower leg so that you're not just doing this, you're doing a nice linear kick, skewering through them. You can do other strikes, of course, but really try to focus on these linear strikes and making human kebabs of your partners. All right, we're going to go through a couple different rounds of partners. So everybody find a partner, 2 2s, 3 3s, AB sparring. I need a buddy. All right. Bow to your partners. Juliet, can you begin? All right. Go ahead. Good. This. 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 Good. This. This. Good. This. 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 That turning side kick. Try to skewer. Do it again. This. There you go.
So in general, in all the sparring, he'll stay off the ground as much as you can.
Go ahead. This side, good. This side. This side. This side. This side. Good. Do that combo again. Keep this hand up. Keep this hand up. Protect your face. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because if you come in for a side kick of any kind and the snag is down and you're a punching distance, how about 4/4?
Sure. I mean,
Go ahead. This good. It's not like 4/4 just because jab cross is already 2, right? So if so I can do 2 things in a jab cross. So I take 1, 2, jab cross. That's 4 already.
yeah.
1, 2, jab.
That's 1, 3.
Yep. This side. This side. This. That's not a. Well, maybe you screwed me with your shoulder.
Yeah, just hit mine.
right, I'll stop. Face your partner. Juliet, can you? Last quick round, new partner. Someone you haven't worked with in a while. James, do you want to go in?
Yeah, no, you grab it.
Okay. Juliet, can you? Force? Oh, just keep in mind, jab cross is two. So it's you only have to think of two things and then jab cross. You mentally represent generating the power for your boxing and kicking, and hopefully as you get more and more practice, you will be thinking about, again, generating force from the ground, driving from your feet through your hips, and bringing your torso along with that. But check yourself. What are your forearms doing? What is your lower leg doing? That's a good way to sort of, even without mirrors, you can have an idea of whether you're being successful with that power generation or whether you're just punching like this or kicking like this. Any last questions or comments? All right, face me, Juliet. Thank you very much.